Hi, I'm Richie Mackay.
And I'm Davey Bolt, and you are listening to the Wrong Bias podcast.
And on today's show, we've got something a little bit different. Is it about balls? Is it not about balls? We've got Shaun Campbell on from the Arthur Wharton Foundation. It's a fantastic story, and I'm sure you will enjoy the show and listen to something a bit different. And we also have our regular competition sponsored by XX20. And also we have Richie's Roundup, who made a return in the last podcast after quite a few weeks.
And here we are, mate. Show number 36. You been up to anything since our last one?
A bit of stuff here and there, you know. I chucked a few balls up and a few bits and pieces, aye.
But if people have been following the PBA qualifying event at Stanley, which we streamed, you'll have seen that my right-hand man qualified. You're doing exceptionally well, considering that he was up there from 7:45 on the Saturday morning doing a bit streaming commentary. Stiff as a board at 3:30 in the afternoon.
Aye.
Limbering up at the sidelines for his 4:00 game to come through all the games. Tremendous, mate. You played really well. I was chuffed a bit for you.
Thank you. Yeah, I was. I'll be honest with you. I was concerned that obviously we'd be doing the streaming and could potentially affect the games up there. But actually, I genuinely felt really, really good. Even the next morning when I went to get up early again for the Sunday morning for the semi-final and final, I expected to wake up and walk out the house like a crab. But no, I felt really good. And obviously, thanks to you and all, mate, for carrying the can while I was out in the green. Mr. Gale give us a bollocking a couple of times, saying you're supposed to be working, not playing balls. So, thanks for holding the fort.
Yeah, but that was good. I mean, the streaming went tremendous. It went better than I thought. I went up Friday to set it up, and I'll not tell a lie, but I was stressed out Friday trying to set it up because I had problems with the cameras. I'm going, oh, God, the Wi-Fi mightn't work. But as it happens, everything fell into place, and the viewing figures, well, they have surpassed our expectations, mate. I just checked, and it's about 57,000 views we've had of them now.
That's unbelievable.
So,
if I'd known you, you know, we're a team, mate. If I'd known you were stressed on the Friday, you could have picked the phone up, and I just would have ignored you.
I would have just hung up. There is a demand for live balls. People will watch it. The comments that we've had is great. So anybody who commented on it, great. And like we've said many times through the streams, Mr. Parkinson and Mr. Gale, hats off to them for the organisation and the time and the commitment that they put in to get these events underway, mate.
I had a nice comment the other day as well, mate, up at West End, and one of the guys was like, you know, I was sitting out in Spain, listening to you and watching you on the live stream. And he says, my wife came out and says, but when 20 odd degrees out here, man, come out in the sun. He was like, no, I'm stopping in here. He says, I had a right laugh. So it was like, difference between sitting in the Spanish sun and watching us. It was a compliment in itself. But now, yet again, it was thoroughly enjoyable. It was a good laugh. And Jason stepped in, and our very unbiased co-commentator jumped in at one point as well, Dean Reaver, and didn't support his sister in any shape or form because he didn't want to show any favouritism. And jumping up on the table and nearly high-fiving her in the middle of the rink was possibly just a step too far. But all good. He did a great job as well.
Just for those later on in the show, I have managed to cut a couple of the audio for Mr. Parkinson's famous quote, which I think will become a ringtone, and Young Dean's unbiased commentary at the end when young Beth got the shot. So that's something for you to listen to at the end. Moving on to something else, mate. I know we have touched on it previously. Bowls England, they've released 2022 National Championships timetable, obviously starting later due to the Commonwealth Games. It still looks like there's only one qualifier per county.
Yeah, I think that was always going to be the case, Richie, if I'm honest. It's, the time scales are so tight from the Commonwealth Games happening to rolling into the finals. I just don't think there would have been the capacity to roll two qualifiers out. But let's see what happens the following year. As we keep saying, it's not about things that happen this year. It's about improvements or changes that are made the year after. So, time will tell, but certainly going to be a bowls-packed year, 2022.
Yeah, without a doubt, mate. And there's going to be more regional finals in the mixed and team events, which I think is a good idea. I think it gets to other clubs. It gives them an opportunity to clubs to see top quality bowls, and it cuts down on the expenses as well. So, but no doubt there'll be some still critical of the changes because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
You can't please everybody all of the time, and it's one of those things. You've just got to try and do what's best for the majority. And, things happened this season that people didn't agree with.
Just one last thing. In the latest edition of Balls International, obviously Shaun's last one, I'll just give a big shout out to Lucy Smith again. I know I did mention on the previous podcast, I Stand Up to Anxiety. It's a smashing article. If anybody hasn't read it, it's well worth a read, and fair play to her for putting the article out.
Yeah, definitely some good stuff. And once again, let's just pass on our congratulations to Shaun for 7 really good years with the magazine, and see where it goes next. It'll be interesting to see what direction Balls International goes in, or whether they follow the same sort of formats.
And now we catch up with the first part of our chat with Shaun Campbell.
Right, and on today's podcast, we have Shaun Campbell from the Arthur Wharton Foundation. Welcome to the Wrong Bias podcast, Shaun.
Lovely to be here. Thank you so much for asking me. Feels like a privilege.
You'll not be saying that in about half an hour.
You're not, mate. If you say to yourself, what have I let myself into for here?
Well, could well be the case.
Great to have you on, Shaun. Just a quick background from myself, obviously how we met down at South Park Bowling Club for their 125th anniversary with Scott Morland and all of the team down there. And I had the privilege to come across, I met yourself and came across to the foundation that you set up. Can we just get a little bit of a background on yourself, Shaun?
Certainly, yeah. I'm from Leeds originally, and, I began my life in Hare Hills, Chapeltown. It was very, very mixed education. My father came over from Barbados during the kind of Windrush years. So he's black, mother's white. So I had very much, multicultural kind of upbringing. I found myself falling into love with dance. So I began doing contemporary dance and ballet in London and things like that. And then I kind of fell out of love with that art form and decided I wanted to write music for it. So I ended up writing music for it instead with Scottish Ballet, Zimbabwe National Ballet, Phoenix Dance Company. I then opened my own business selling furniture. And it was whilst I'd just opened that furniture shop in Darlington where I was invited to give a talk for Black History Month on basically the transition of music from Africa to the West. And whilst I was there, I came across the name of Arthur Wharton. So that's where it all began, really, in Middlesbrough.
You did set the whole foundation up yourself, didn't you?
I did. I mean, essentially what happened was, once I'd actually done this talk at Middlesbrough Town Hall for Black History Month, back in 2007, I thought, well, I've got to do something to pay tribute to this remarkable sportsman I've just come across, because nobody seems to have done enough, So I went back to my shop, started painting a picture all about his history. Some guy came in the shop, went down to the Northern Echo, told them there was a local guy championing this remarkable sportsman he'd never heard of. So the Echo came in and, media being media, the next day in the press, it had this headline, local businessman starts campaign to honour Arthur Wharton. And I thought, oh my God, I haven't started a campaign at all. It's just, and then I thought, you know what? Why not? Somebody's going to have to do right by this young man. And the rest is history, as they say.
Touching back on that, so you knew nothing about Arthur Wharton either, did you not?
I didn't. I'm an avid sports fan. I like football. I like any kind of sport. I'm a competitor. I just love the whole aspect of sport, for its mental health and well-being properties, to its therapeutic avenues, to its physical fitness. And all sports have different strengths and different weaknesses. And so when you enjoy a multitude of sports, you tend to see things from a whole different perspective. That's why I think sport is so powerful. To think that I was so into sport and I hadn't heard of him, I just thought there's a rabbit off here. How come we haven't heard of him? So I thought, well, okay, I'll start a campaign. I got in touch with the author who wrote a book about Arthur. I got in touch with Irving Welsh, the author of Train Spotting, because he'd written a foreword. We all met up in London. And I said, look, how come, this hasn't gone any further since you guys started all of this? And they said, well, we just can't get anything over the line. It'd be great to see a statue. It'd be great to see this and that. And we just can't do it. I said, okay, let me just see what I can do. Next thing you know, I got back to my shop and I thought, right, let's start a proper campaign. So I'd never done it before. So I just kind of winged it, I made it up as I went along.
Like us.
Indeed. And then I got in touch with George Boateng at Middlesbrough Football Club to become a patron, because he's Ghanaian and he was involved in football. And I felt that at that time, nobody knew who I was. So I needed somebody of note that, the youth and others could identify with, who they might listen to, because they might not necessarily listen to me. I then got in touch with Stevie Wonder by default, really. I was going to a trade fair in in Birmingham for my shop. And on the back of the ticket, it said Stevie Wonder in concert on the Monday night. So I thought, wow, I won't come back on Sunday. I'll stay over on the Monday, go to the concert and come back. But you know something, on that Friday night, just before the Monday, I got into bed and I started thinking, if there was anybody in the world who'd know how important it is what I'm about to do, it would be Stevie Wonder. So don't ask me how, chaps, but within 48 hours, I'd got his blessing. And 52 hours later, I was live on stage with him in front of 17,000 people with Stevie Wonder singing the praises of Arthur Wharton and Darlington. And at that moment, I thought, good enough for Stevie Wonder, there's not another door I dare not knock on.
So give us an understanding, what sort of timescales are we talking here then, Shaun? What, from it starting to where you are now, you know, what's the timescale?
Well, essentially, 2007, October, is when I first learned the name of Arthur. 2008 was when I was live on stage with Stevie Wonder, and Stevie Wonder on stage announced the Arthur Wharton Foundation, and we didn't have a foundation. It was just a campaign. So 2 years later, 2010, I thought, oh my God, we better form a foundation. So we did. So really, since 2010, we've really been kind of trying to get the footballing authorities and others to do their duty. They have a duty of care to pay tribute. When you guys achieve what you do in bowls, it is only right that somebody pats you on the back and rewards that success and acknowledges it and pays tribute to it. That had not been done by this young man who became the world's first black professional footballer, the world's first fastest man on the planet, a professional cricketer, a professional rugby player, and a cycling champion, all at the same time. Nobody has or will ever do that again. Yeah. And this guy was the beginning, if you like, of the black presence in sport, not just in this country, but across the globe. So it was really a case of, I'm not going to ask the public to put their hand in the pocket. I need to get FIFA, UEFA, the FA and the PFA to do the right thing by one of their own. And that was the quest. So I to this day, I've done everything without ever earning a penny from it, because I felt that what I needed to do was to ensure that the authorities, if they have a duty of care, then they should enact that properly and diligently. And if they can't do that, then I will force them to do it. And that's indeed what I had to do eventually. And we got the statue, the biggest statue of any sportsman in the country, 16 foot tall. It sits proudly from the centre of the St. George's Cross at Burton-on-Trent, at the National Football Centre. So all of our England teams pass that statue every day when they're in training, and it's looking over them.
Fantastic. And just put on, you sent a video that I watched down at the foundation as well. And just for those who are listening who may not have seen the video, what year are we going back to when Arthur obviously became that first black professional footballer?
Well, it was 1892. It was actually 3rd of July, 1886, is when Arthur Wharton first recorded that world's first ever official fastest man on the planet. And he did that at Stamford Bridge on the very pitch where you watch Chelsea Football Club playing today. He ran 100 yards in 10 seconds dead. It was unbelievable, and that record stood for over 30 years. And when you think about Chariots of Fire with Harold Abrahams and Eric Liddell and that great film, well, when they actually ran that race, it was a quarter of a second slower than Arthur had run it 30 odd years earlier, and he never got a film, you know.
So in your opinion, Shaun, how do you think Arthur Wharton went under the radar, so to speak, for so long?
Arthur's demise was quite tragic. You know, he committed so much to society. Even during the First World War, he signed up as a member of the whole Home Guard. He couldn't do enough for this country. He played 7 games of football in 10 days for charity, to feed the poor in the face of his own adversity. His humanitarian spirit is what captured my heart and my soul and wanted me to do this. It was over and above the sporting achievements, the idea that this young man in adversity could do all of this for his community. He then became a miner and he worked at the coal face for the rest of his life. And he died. He laid in an unmarked grave until 1998. He died the 12th of December in 1930. And he just laid there unmarked. And fortunately, an organisation in Sheffield, Football Unites Races and Divides, erected with the local community a headstone for Arthur. Why was he under the radar? Well, I suppose if you think about it, back then Arthur would have been a bit of a novelty, but he did have kind of social status in terms of being a bit of a celebrity because of his antics and because of his achievements. But then they just forgot about him and he just became forgotten. And he died a terrible death, of cancer, and he had syphilis, and he died in a sanatorium all alone. And how can somebody achieve so much and receive so little? And that's what fueled my fire, to make sure that any individual, regardless of colour, race, religion, if you achieve, you should be congratulated and you should be applauded for the contribution you've made for your field,
We came down to Darlington, and within the foundation itself, you've got a huge mural. I think there was a bit of a story around that as well, wasn't there?
There was indeed. A young man in Darlington, a chap called Danny Howes, got in touch, asking if I'd give a talk for Black History Month to the heads of BT Sport. He said, can I come along, have a chat? Yeah, he came along, we had a chat. And the 30-minute planned meeting was 5.5 hours. And the next thing you know, I'm now in touch with bigwigs at BT and BT Sport who'd never heard of Arthur, and suddenly they're all enthused by it. In Black History Month, usually people tick boxes, and that's why they get in touch. But it turned out quite different with BT. They knew we wanted to create a mural. We had a design of our own, and they said, look, Shaun, can we do this with and for you? And my God, did they do us proud. They created this unbelievable mural. The kind of mural that you'd normally see in a big city or something. And it was magnificent. And we did it over a 4-day period when everybody was literally at the height of lockdown. We then used that to really enhance the local community. So on all of the walls on the outside of our buildings, we paid tribute to positive things. So every week, it seemed, we'd have a different mural on the exterior walls. Suddenly there's a real buzz about it. And then one day, obviously, we painted the 3 lions on the walls really large in tribute to the European Cup that was on at the time. Subsequently, when England played Scotland, we found that an absolutely huge event. It was the first time in 20 odd years that they'd played against each other in a proper competition. So we paid tribute to both, and both of our huge walls on the outside had Scotland on one side and England on the other. And you had Scots fans and England fans coming down. It was brilliant. Skipped forward to the final. It's now England-Italy. We took Scotland off the wall. We put all of Italy on the wall. And Italians would come down and nobody defaced the walls at all. Skip forward to further on within that final, and those 3 young black players missed their penalties. And we knew how painful that was for any of you people like you, David, who are a professional sportsman who knows what it's like to perform at the highest level. You know when you're doing something that is potentially groundbreaking or it's going to break your heart. You've been there, you've seen it, you've done it. Imagine what it took to have the courage and the dignity to stand up and take those penalties for your country, knowing that if you miss, you're going to receive vitriol. But if you're black and you miss, it's going to be a different level. The second those boys missed, we were hurting within the black community because we knew what was coming. So we painted those numbers on our walls large underneath Arthur, looking over them. That night, 2:00 in the morning, somebody chose to come and deface it with racist graffiti. So it said things like, we do not stand with our 3 black lions. And then it talked about non-white immigrants not being welcome, and it was really nasty stuff. But to my great delight, when I got down there in the morning, just after the call, I was deeply upset, of course, at first. But then I suddenly found cars pulling up with families with paintbrushes and paint, and they painted it all out. It was done. It was the most wonderful, heartwarming, human feeling one would ever want. I went into the office and I cried, man. And the guy who was with me, I said, look, you stay outside, just tell them I'm busy in the office. But I was upset. I was upset that level of support in that community was there. It touched me deeply. And we've not had any defacing of the murals. Incidentally, the person who defaced the mural never actually painted or scrawled over any of the artwork. He was very considerate. I know that sounds a bit contradictory, but he'd written it all very large, but on the white, knowing that we could cover it back up.
It's fantastic that you've obviously you've built that community spirit within the Darlington area as well, Shaun. And when I came in, we're going to do a bit of name dropping here because I saw the pictures all over the wall.
Right.
You've had umpteen umpteen celebrities, and I would class them as A celebrities as well, who are obviously supporting you as well. And I've seen firsthand all of the photos with yourself.
Well, people like, obviously, a famous author, Irvine Welsh. She's one of our patrons now, along with Viv Anderson, the first black player for England, and Roland Butcher, the first black cricketer, also ex-footballer. But Rio Ferdinand, Jay Leno in America is a fan of ours. He sent us his lovely Arthur Wharton #1 video. Stevie Cropper from Booker T and the MGs, the guy who wrote, legend of Stax Music, who wrote Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, and Green Onions, and our cricket theme, Soul Limbo. He rang me up. Hey, man, my God, this is Arthur Wharton. What a guy. And I'm like, oh, who's this? And he's Crop Dog. I said, Crop Dog? Yeah, Stevie Cropper, man. I'm in Nashville. I'm like, oh, my God. He said, Shaun, man, I saw you on the Black News Channel. What can I do for you? So it was like, well, you're a musician, creating some music. So he created a whole track. This is, again, at the height of lockdown. He just happened to have a recording studio next to his house. And one of the top up-and-coming Nashville singers happened to be his neighbour. They're very close friends. So they all got in the studio and produced this remarkable piece of music for me. So lots of people, Usain Bolt. I mean, we had a wonderful meeting. When the documentary comes out about the campaign, everybody will kind of see who's involved. But everybody from literally Stevie Wonder to Jay Leno, Booker T and MGs, Marcus Rashford, Mason Mounts, just so many. And the reason for that is because I always say, I'm a nobody relatively, but I need people with public profile to try and help me with this message. But suddenly people contact me now instead of me having to contact them. So it's not that I'm a celebrity, but I know I'm respected for what I do. And there's not a price I could put on that really, because I try to do everything right. I try to do it diligently, and it's always with a good heart and a sense of fair play. Fair play means that, to give you a brief example of what I mean by that, is that the young person who scrawled on our walls that racist graffiti, I want to talk to that young man. I don't need him prosecuting. I need to know and have the conversation to find out what was in his mind to make him want to get up at 2 a.m. and come and do that. I believe in that approach, and there could be extra circumstances that provoked him in order to do it, which perhaps he didn't understand. Wouldn't necessarily make him racist. I know that sounds very controversial, and I'm quite aware of that. But I believe that sometimes if you're going to call racism out, you'd better be right about it. Yes, an act can be described as a racist act. I get that. But without understanding the underlying motives for that and perhaps what spurred that person on to do it, we're not going to change anything. Our motto at the foundation is very apt for what we want to do, and is basically connecting the present. That's Richard and you now, David, and me talking. So it's connecting the present to the past for the future.
And there'll be more from Shaun later in the show. And now it's time for Richie's Roundup. Cue the music. Details of the Bowls England 2022 National Championships have been released. It will be a 20-day Bowls Bonanza, and it will take place between August the 25th and September the 18th. Online entries will be open on November the 15th. News from the Valley. Week 3 in the Premier League has seen Bueno Gwent whitewash Radnorshire to go top of the table. Isleworth beat Cannon Valley 18-4 and Cardiff beat Port Talbot 20-2. The leaders in the East League are Sully, the West League are Denifre, and the North League are Flintshire. News from the Borders. With 834 clubs and 51,000 members, Bowls Scotland are on the lookout for an administrative officer to join their experienced team. So if you are passionate, hard-working, don't be shy. Week 3 of the Green Gage Premier League. East Lothian remain unbeaten after a 20-shot win over Ballantyre, while West of Scotland remain rooted at the foot of the table after a third straight loss at home to West Lothian. And the semi-final lineup in the Ladies National Singles has been confirmed. Paisley's Emma McIntyre will play Headwell's Sarah Jane Ewing. Glasgow's Claire Anderson will play East Fife's Celia Smith. The venue is yet to be confirmed, but the ties will take place on December the 4th. And that sound is a blast from the past, as once again we will be keeping our eye on the English national champions and see if they can defend their titles. We've already lost one. Well, when I say we've lost one, we haven't really. In the Denny Plate, Norfolk won 2 rounds in this year's Denny, so we'll not drop into the plate. The next Open Singles Circuit takes place at Newark on November the 20th, 21. Currently 56 players will battle it out for the first prize. Meanwhile, entries are now being accepted for the Durham event, which takes place on December the 4th and 5th. News from the Short Mat Players Tour. Entry into the Falcon Open Pairs has been closed. The event will have a maximum number of entries, 128, and it takes place on the 27th and 28th of November. Right, mate, on the back of your golden ticket to Potters, the draw for the World Indoor Singles Championships 2022 took place, and you have been handed a tie against 4th seed Robert Paxton, mate.
Yep, nice easy one for starters. Yeah, there's no easy games. I'll be honest with you, they're all going to be tough games. I mean, you're never going to get an easy one down there. So just got to go down and put a game together and make them beat us, just like I thought at the qualifiers.
That's right, mate. And it's good to see Catherine Rednell has gotten an invite back into it.
Yeah, after a great performance last year, she got through a few rounds and she beat Alex Marshall on the way. So yeah, she's going to be representing again, which is a great thing. And obviously we've got the other 7 qualifiers, wasn't it, from the BBAs who are going to be competing as well.
And 5 overseas players. We've got Israel, Hong Kong, USA, Canada, and Mervyn King's got a game against the South African chap. Would you like to pronounce that?
Yes, he has got a game against the South African chap, Richie, and no, I wouldn't.
Well, I'll have it. No, I'll better not.
Let us have a go, seeing as you put us on the spot, seeing as our... I can't remember what it said, so let's have a look. King against Thinas Olof.
That sounds good to me.
Thinas Olof. Good job he wasn't Welsh, and that would have been you knackered.
No, that would have been me gone, mate. That would have been... I'm over the moon. The Welsh one's Graham Howard.
Yeah, aye, Graham Howard and Jason Greenslade. Even you couldn't get them ones wrong.
I couldn't get them wrong. One of the great supporters of the show, Alex Marshall, playing Mark McPeak of Ireland.
Yep. Yeah, and the one that for me sticks out like an absolute sore thumb is the potential 2 Commonwealth Games England representatives, Jamie Chesney versus Jamie Walker. That will be an absolute stormer for a first round game.
Yeah, and just to remind you that the World Indoor Singles takes place from Friday the 7th to the 23rd of January 2022. It will be streamed via their Facebook and YouTube, the early stages, and then you'll catch it on mainstream TV.
Yep, should be a great event as always. And Jason's promised us a few little changes. So I don't know what they are myself, but let's wait and see. He's hinted at the fact there may be 1 or 2 little changes down there this year, so that'll be interesting to find out.
And now we catch up with part 2 of our chat with Shaun Campbell.
You've touched on the documentary. Is that going to be a TV documentary, is it?
Yes, at the moment. It's, I mean, they've been following me around for a number of years, this couple of guys from BBC and things, originally with BBC, now independent. There's a lot of footage, they came to present Sepp Blatter with a statue for me. They've been to Ghana. We've been all over the place doing things, and they filmed my journey. And for example, last year, when we met Usain Bolt turns to the camera and he says, without Arthur Wharton, there is no Usain Bolt. And that is the truth, which is why we kicked off. And I said, hey, Usain, if you believe that, you and I are going to turn to that camera and we're going to say, Arthur Wharton, number 1. And that's where it all began. So he said, yes, man, let's do it. So we turned to the camera and we went, Arthur Wharton, number 1. And you can see us in that video together.
With regards to the future, Shaun, where do you see this? What's your plans for the future?
It's a very, very, very good question, incidentally, because I was asked that question by somebody close to me today and I'd never really answered it properly, but I did today, just by default. So I'll share what I answered with. When the statue was erected in 2014 at St. George's Park, everybody thought that was the end of my journey, that I'd championed him all that time. We got the statue, job done. Friends, that was the very, very beginning for me. It's not about just a statue. It's about legacy. It's about what is the story of Arthur Wharton worth for the benefit of our community, the global community. And it has to be the story of achieving in the face of adversity. It's a story of hope. It is a righteous path he went on, not in the religious sense, but in the sense that it was righteous, that he didn't only fulfill his obligations to all those different sports, but he committed, potentially his life by signing up to be a member of the Home Guard, about playing 7 games of football, incidentally, in 10 days. In those days, the football was like a cannonball. Arthur wore welding gloves to protect himself. And you know how heavy those balls get when they're wet back then. I mean, 7 games in 10 days. And you could attack the keeper in those days. You could barack them and knock them over without any consequences. And so for me, it's like the legacy has to be that we need to change the hearts and minds of an entire generation if we're going to change things. And the reason I say that, with all due respect, gentlemen, you're I'm perhaps older than you, but we're of a similar generation. And at school, we were taught all about the Normans and the Romans and the Saxons and the Vikings. David, when you came down with Alex Marshall to the foundation, I don't think you know how important that was to us. Because to ask professional sports people like you who've achieved at the highest level, and at the click of a finger, you said, yes, David. You didn't even think it. You said, look, I'm sure we can get 5 or 10 minutes in. We'll come down. My gosh, it is so refreshing to have such an immediate response upon hearing Arthur's story. I take my hat off to you, David.
We thoroughly enjoyed it, Shaun, and I know Alex really enjoyed it. We talked about it a lot on the journey back up to the house to get back to his car. So no, it was a pleasure to come down, and it was actually a pleasure to find out about something again that I knew nothing about, and Alex certainly knew nothing about as well.
Can I just do a little promotion for bowls? I'd never played bowls before that day, and I'm now an addict. I love it. I mean, I love watching it, but I've never played it. But I've got to say, when the next day, I'd only bowled a few ends, and I really, really enjoyed it. But my left bum cheek, man, and my thighs, I was in agony. I'd oh my God. I didn't realise that just playing a ball like that was so physical, but it is. Anyway, I love the game, and I think
that is music to my ears, Shaun. Music to me is after the last podcast that we've just done on Balls Fit. So I'll send you the link down for that one so you can have a listen to it. We're not repeating ourselves, but it'll only take you 6 months, and you'll be polishing off Scott Morland because he's not very good.
I'll tell you what, I'm seriously competitive. Once I get going, as soon as I get, because the trick was I didn't realise the ball had a bias on it. So I was bowling it and wondering why it was ending up in somebody else's lane. I couldn't believe it.
Scott's been wondering that for the last 20 odd years. Don't worry.
But once I got the hang of it, I learned how to work it, and my gosh, I just cannot wait to get back on that green, man.
Fantastic. That's great to hear. Great to hear for the sport. And it's something that we try to promote, so much. It is a really, really addictive sport. And I think there is a lack of understanding based on the fact that, there's a lot of people keep mentally strong and mentally fit as well as physically fit while they play that as well, which is why so many people play to the latter ages as well. Richie, any questions for you?
I'll hold my hands up, Shaun. I never heard of Arthur Wharton either until obviously the link with Scott. After reading his story and the articles on your website, what a story. I mean, a couple of bits that caught my eye in other articles. One report deemed him as a bit of a showman as a footballer.
Yes. And
I read the one report where he hung from the crossbar, caught the ball between his legs, and the 3 forwards ended up in the back of the net. Yeah. Now, if that happened nowadays, I think Sky Sports would go into meltdown.
Yeah. Could you imagine the social media on something like that? And the other thing was, he turned up to, do you remember throwing the cricket ball at school as part of your school competition? It was like who could throw it the furthest. Arthur turned up at a competition down south and they were playing it. And I suppose you'd call it the world record because it was only in the UK really where they were doing it. It was like 69 yards. And Arthur was watching and he said, do you mind if I have a go? So they kind of chuckled a bit and said, aye, go on then. So I passed him the cricket ball and he threw it 112 yards, man.
I'm not going for that one, he said.
But it's like you said, there are these funny stories about Arthur. He's done some really peculiar things. I mean, in his first race, he ducked underneath the tape because he didn't realise you had to run through it in order to win. So they didn't give him the prize. So when the prize was handed to the other guy, he smashed it on the floor.
There was another one as well. I mean, actually, it's quite apt because when you said he was the first black player to become a professional footballer, when he was at Sheffield United, the team that he actually played against, I'm a supporter of Sunderland. Davey probably didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
I didn't realise that.
Oh yes, they had Fatty Folks in goal for Sheffield, didn't they?
That's right. I was going to mention him as well, because when he was at Sheffield, the fella called William Fatty Fawkes, Arthur ended up being understudy to him, and I think he only played 3 games. Now that Fatty Fawkes apparently weighed 24 stones.
That's right.
And I think nowadays there'd definitely be serious questions about the fitness course, mate. 24 stone, goalkeeper.
That's exactly how I've modelled my sporting career on.
Unbelievable. Anyway, do you think, Shaun, the reason he didn't get an international cap was the colour of his skin?
Personally, I do, because there were calls for him to play for England, and he was by far and away the most talked about, if not the best goalkeeper in the country at the time, which is why he was so sought after.
We'll probably both watched football for 40 years. Well, I can remember watching the likes of Laurie Cunningham, Cyril Regis, Brendan Batson at West Brom.
Oh, yes.
And at the time, they were labelled 3 degrees, which nowadays quite rightly wouldn't be tolerated. Mm-hmm. I've recently listened to Paul Canoville, the first black player to play for Chelsea, and the abuse that he got from the away supporters, but also from his own. Yeah. Do you think that certain generation, racism in sport, was more or less swept under the carpet?
I do. I think it was more tolerated back then, racism, because it was like nobody was really standing up for it. And certainly the black players didn't feel in a position to do much about it because there were so few of them around. I mean, I'm very close to people like Brendan Batson and, God rest his soul, Cyril Regis. He supported us throughout this entire campaign. When he passed away in 2018, we were devastated. It really broke our hearts. Paul Canoville, I'm extremely close to. Paul Canoville, that day when he went out to play, I mean, think about it, 1982, man. How long did it take Chelsea to have a black player? England's first black player was Viv in 1978. So it took Chelsea a while to catch up. And that day, when he went out for his day, I think John Neal was the manager on the day. And he said, son, get yourself warmed up. You're going to make, your debut. So Paul's like, oh, wow. So he gets out, he's pulling up his shin. This is the way he describes it to me personally. Shaun, man, I was pulling up my shin pads, pulling up my socks. John Neal says, right, son, get yourself up and down the line, get yourself warmed up. And as he's running up and down, his own fans are shouting things. Then the banana started coming in. It absolutely broke the man's heart. Yeah. He was devastated. He was never the same person after that. I mean, that was his debut and he still did some heroic things and played. And so, to answer your question, really, back in those days, it was very difficult to have a strong voice.
Shaun, absolute pleasure. It was a pleasure to come down and meet you, Darlington. A little bit of a different direction to what we normally do in the podcast, but I love the story. I sent the video across to Richie, and obviously the research Richie's looked into it and obviously found out more of the background as well. I think we can both comfortably say that it's been great to have you on and learn about it and learn about the Arthur Wharton Foundation. From me personally, and I'm sure Richie as well, all I can do is obviously just wish you the best of luck for the future. I hope everything that you aim to do and hope to do in the future comes to fruition. I've no doubt whatsoever talking to you that you've got the drive and passion, and I think the influence to be able to do that. So best of luck for the future. Thanks so much for coming on. And all I would say is I would recommend anybody who are passing the Darlington area or in the Darlington area to look up where you are and pop in and see what we already have, and you'll not be disappointed.
Well, all I can say to that is thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Anybody who's listening to this who hasn't played bowls before, just have a go. It's fantastic. And I wish you, both of you, the very, very best moving forward. And thank you so much for having me. I feel humbled being on here with gentlemen like you who are, obviously, you wouldn't have been in touch if you weren't interested in Arthur's story. And that's what it's all about. I tell David tells Richard, and this is how we pass the word on. So I'm eternally grateful for you gentlemen for passing on this message. Thank you so much.
Not a problem at all, Shaun.
No problem. So we will put a link on because you do have a Just Given page as well, Shaun, don't you?
I do, yes.
Yeah, so we will put the link on for that as well. So if anybody's got a few shekels in the pocket, just feel free to put it to a fantastic foundation.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shaun. And now, 3 audio highlights from our live streaming at Stanley. You'll not hear this one on the BBC.
I'm going to nibble on my gherkin. I don't mind nicking off my gherkin.
I want to nibble on your gherkin.
don't like them.
Oh dear me.
Horrible things.
Can't think of another sport in the whole world where any commentator would say, would you like a nibble of me gherkin?
And when somebody stands in front of the camera, are you a man or are you a mouse?
I've got to drop this one in, like, if you're listening. I'm sitting next to a 6'3", 6'4". How tall are you?
6'6".
And Mr. Nicholson stepped in front of the camera a couple of times yesterday, so we've just had to have a little nudge, and he says, well, I'm not telling him, he's a big lad, him. Ah, dear me. Nothing sacred in this podcast.
Nothing at all.
Did it be saying no to me? I'll tell everyone.
Well, these are too shit, mate, because you've asked the umpire to have a word with them.
You're right. I took the official point of view.
And we may be called the wrong bias, but there was definitely no bias in the commentary from Dean Reaver as his sister Beth won again.
I think 3's one apiece in the tie break. Listener's favourite there, best last balls away.
Balls away. Got a better line.
Hurry. Oh, run. Hurry yet.
Very close. Oh, she's all
Hurry.
over this.
Oh, well played, Beth. Yes!
What a ball.
Tell you what, that wasn't a wrong bias anyway. Hopefully.
Trying to draw or trying to fit
Oh
it
no,
away.
he's playing quick.
Gone quick.
Is he high? He's high.
Coming down.
Well played, Beth. Well done, Beth.
Well, there you go. Well done to the young lady.
Magic stuff.
And it's time for the XX20 sponsored competition. The prize again will be a £20 voucher to use on the XX20 website, and the winner will also receive one of our Wrong Bias goodie kits sponsored by Lean to Succeed and Balls' Balls. And the question is, what was the name of the goalkeeper at Sheffield United that kept Arthur Wharton out of the first team? Answers via email to wrong.bias@hotmail.com or drop us a message or comment on our Facebook page. If you missed any of the streaming from Stanley, you can catch all the games via our YouTube channel at thewrongbias.com. Now you would think after 36 goes at doing the What's On intro, it would be a piece of cake.
And we also have our regular competition sponsored by XX20, where we're going to have a question this week, not the video. And anybody who wants to enter the competition, just stick it on. Why am I saying this? I don't want to say this. This is just the opening. This is just the opening part. You say this in the competition bit. I just say I'm losing the plot.
It's just going to be one long blooper this Christmas. There's just going to be one blooper. It's going to take about 10 minutes.
Oh, mano. You know, when you watch TV programmes and you see them making the balls up all the time and you're going, how can they do it so many times?
Do we need a clapper? Do we need a clapperboard? Take 6 or something like that?
Take 64, just for God's sake, Dave. Tell us what's on the show. You've only got 3 things to say, and you've only got one competition to talk about. But Richie will do the competition bits, so shut up. Just get on with it. That's exactly what Take 64.
Right, so you've got Shaun Campbell, you've got the competition sponsored by bloody blah, you've got Richie's Roundup, and then that's it.
Aye.
Right, so that's all clear. Take 2. What can go wrong?
Our regular competition sponsored by XX20, and we will be asking bollocks now, you're going to do that, didn't
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
You're going to ask the question, man, aren't you? I'm just telling them what it's going to be on.
Oh, you just tell them it's going to be on.
For Christ's sake.
That's a blooper.
I know where this is going to be. I know where this is going to be on Christmas Day.
You know where it's going, mate. You know where it's going. You know where you're at now, do you?
Yeah, I'm going to start again, so. Right, deep breath. And yeah, and that's everything, and that's the completing of the Balls Up by Davy Balls on the 7th of November 2021. Happy Christmas, everybody. Listen to all this on the Christmas show. Okay.
That's right. What?
I'm sure you'll be able to pick some pieces out of that.
Sure, I'll be able to stitch that together. That'll be the equivalent.
It'll appear completely seamless.
I know there's be nothing. You say, "He's done that well, hasn't he?" He's done that very well. He's never made a mistake at all. Right, there we go, mate. Show 36 done. And it was a different show. Speaking to Shaun, whose enthusiasm for the Arthur Wharton Foundation came through 100%. Was a good story, mate.
Absolutely. He's very passionate about what he's doing. And for me, it was a great story when we went down and heard it. And it just also makes you wonder how many men and women out there who have been, excellent in the field have maybe just disappeared into the archives and also been forgotten about. And it was great to have him on the show as well. And wish them all the best for the future for the foundation.
Right, mate. So that's that done and dusted. Bonfire night gone. And I haven't getting burnt. I haven't been through on the bonfire. So we'll catch you later, folks. Just keep your ears peeled for the ringtone at the end of the show. But didn't laugh too much, mind you. Right, see you, folks.
Great stuff. I'll take care of.
Somebody's going to nibble on my gherkin. Hey! Somebody's going to nibble on my gherkin. Hey! Somebody's going to nibble on my gherkin.
Thank you for listening and hope you've enjoyed the show.
This has been a Dodgy production.